that's where you have to remember that when you give Meta an objective, it's very good these days at finding people who will meet that objective. So you've got to remember, if you're
Yeah,
telling Meta that you want clicks, it's going to get you clicks. Like, it's not trying to find you a conversion that way. And if
yeah.
you tell Meta that you want video views, it's going to find people who watch videos, but maybe they're not shoppers so much.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Sell More Stuff. That was Gil David, and in case you didn't pick up, Gil knows a thing or two about advertising on Meta or Facebook if you prefer. Gil is the founder of Run DMG, and Run DMG is one of the original premier Facebook partners in the whole of Ireland, and we talk about what that means in the rest of the video. Gil is someone who I have been following as someone kind of to look up to within the Irish market and seeing around digital marketing, Meta, Facebook ads, that kind of thing, for most of my career. And it was a pleasure to talk to him. This episode runtime is a little longer than some of the most recent episodes, and some people might think, oh, he's got back to the two guest type of podcast that he started with in episode 1. No, I was a Facebook marketer in Origin, so the chance to talk shop with Gil, it ran on. I just had too much fun talking to Gil, and we ended up talking for longer than normal, so this episode's a bit on the longer side. But I'm going to let me and Gil do the talking, so sit back and enjoy. Gil, welcome to Sell More Stuff. How are you?
Good, thanks, John. How are you?
I can't complain too much. So how was you were in Portugal recently?
Finally got away with the family. Just got back last week.
Very good, very nice. So for the viewers at home who don't know who you are, and if they're trying to get into e-commerce, they should look you up and follow you on LinkedIn. Tell us about yourself and Run DMG.
So yeah, obviously I'm Gil. I run DMG, which is a performance marketing agency based in Belfast. Had the business now 7.5 years actually. I guess it's grown in a couple of different ways. It started with me being freelance, really a bit similar to yourself, John. Doing bits of, almost everything in marketing, and then deciding that was doing my head in. Just wanted to focus on Facebook ads at the time. Didn't want to do web design, didn't want to do SEO, any of that stuff. Just focus on what I enjoyed and what I was best at. So yeah, kind of niched, or how Americans pronounce it, niched into Facebook ads. And then the business just grew. I had contacts all over the world, so I've always pretty much worked with people in kind of the States and across Europe, as well as businesses a bit more locally. And then just got busy and busy, so I grew into an agency. And then, as you know, iOS 14.5 hit a couple of years ago, which I think maybe 3 years ago now. And I just decided then that we were kind of, clients always asked us about running Google and email and other bits as well, and it was something I always wanted to be more focused just on Facebook / Meta ads for a while. But yeah, just at that point, it just made sense to start diversifying a little bit into related things. So obviously Google and email go really well hand in hand with Facebook, and it helped us as well because there were times where we're seeing good results for clients running the Meta ads for them, but then maybe Google was letting them down, or the email wasn't kind of backing things up, and they were either in-house or with other agencies. So if we could say, yes, we can take over all that for you and run that, and then we're responsible for everything, we're accountable for everything, we have the control over everything, then that's what worked for us. So it just made sense to kind of diversify a little bit. So we definitely don't do SEO. Plenty of other good people that know that, for people that need SEO. Don't do web design, don't do organic either, because even though some people might think, and people do ask, if you run ads on Facebook and Instagram, why don't you do organic as well? Just really because it's too much headache for not enough appreciation, and being honest, not enough reward financially either. So got a lot of respect for people that do organic, because it's a lot of hard work, and organic reach is fairly crap these days. Don't know can I swear on this podcast, Sean?
Yeah, go for it.
Drop the. But yeah, organic reach is pretty shit these days. I haven't looked at stats recently, but I know it used to be about 5% a little while back. So it's a lot of hard work, organic, but like I say, not much return. You're just posting really to keep the page going. And what we like as well is, might sound a bit weird, but when we're running ads, we do like clients to be posting regularly, organically on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
Because it gives you good material potentially for ads. So if something does actually get good engagement these days, which is an achievement, then we'll always look to use those in ads and potentially boost those or take the content and repurpose it in a different way for ads.
Yeah.
So we're still running meta ads. Mostly e-commerce. We do have some kind of content creation or courses that we're running ads for. And then we do Google ads and email as well. That's kind of the three things that we sort of specialize in and focus on the most.
Okay. And before, if you'd have warned me that we were going to talk about 14.5, I probably would have brought a glass of whiskey instead of water. But before that happened, whenever you say you do like you did Facebook ads or you did Meta ads, I think that's an oversimplification. So you were the first premier partner in the whole of Ireland, North or South, for Facebook ads. So I kind of know or did know at the time what that entailed. So tell us what that actually involves.
There was two things. I was the first I'm trying to remember the name because they kind of changed the name of the program and shelved it a couple of years later. There was first marketing partner for technical services. That was the kind of achievement I got with them, and then I had a dev as well who got qualified through that. So we were the first kind of agency to get that achievement. And then I think there was possibly other premier marketing partner agencies, maybe in around Dublin, but I'm pretty sure we were one of the first ones in the north to be given the kind of highest tier of agency recognition to put the premier status. That was, I think it was 2-3 years ago, and then again they changed that now. I think it's badged partners. They don't have the same kind of tiers, but there's different criteria to be what's called a badged partner. But so we were definitely one of the first to be a premium partner agency. And the technical side of things, we get projects directly from Facebook. That was how we worked with some cool brands like Benetton, TUI, big car brands as well, doing projects with them that was directly through Facebook. So that was really cool.
So just if anyone has any doubt about why me and Gil are here to talk about ads today, and that should cement it for you. So on to the hard graft then. So thinking about someone in that kind of startup field when they're starting to run ads for their e-commerce brand, typically I tell people to think about a funnel. What would that funnel look like to you?
Depending on, if we're talking about someone starting from scratch, or maybe it's a new business, or is it maybe an existing business and they're just starting to run ads?
Yeah, kind of either or. So the way in episode 1, the way Andy came at it was someone who was just starting out or someone who's getting ready to launch something new, say.
So I think, unless you already have a pretty big budget and you've got that, then the best way to start is something a bit more simple. So first thing is, ideally you want to be doing some kind of retargeting, but you don't have anyone to retarget. So the starting point would always be making sure that your tracking set up properly across Facebook, Google, Klaviyo, whatever it is. So at least each ad platform is going to get the data back from people that are hitting the website, adding to cart and buying. And then as well as Meta, Google having that data, then you're able to retarget people if they haven't bought yet. But obviously you have to build up that data to be able to retarget anyone. So retargeting, you kind of have to leave it a little bit, and you wouldn't be able to spend much on it for probably the first few weeks to a month. So it's more top of the funnel. And then it's thinking about, and again, this is kind of budget dependent. So for kind of, I guess, medium to larger size clients, we'd always spend a bit of budget on brand awareness. So maybe put about 5% as a rough guide on brand awareness ads that aren't, we're not trying to get a sale from those. That's just trying to hit completely new people that don't know anything about the brand with certain brand messaging that hopefully they're going to recall. So the metric we normally optimize for those would be ad recall lift,
which
is, and you've probably seen if you get the little surveys on Facebook. I see them on Twitter quite a lot as well. It says, "Do you remember seeing an ad from this brand?" Some of them even go into, maybe if you bought from the brand, they ask you if you bought from the brand, what that experience was like on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's where they get a lot of feedback that does affect a brand's page and ads quite a lot. But yeah, ad recall lift basically means that, if you're showing someone an ad, what percentage of those people will remember seeing that ad in, I can't remember if it's 2 days or 3 days. I think it's 2 days, 2 days time. So that's how they sort of survey the people, and then they model the data to project it out. So yeah, the small amount of brand awareness, but not for smaller clients really if you're starting out, because most likely they need to get the most bang for their buck. So we'd always optimize for purchase for those kind of clients, which I don't know if it's as controversial these days as it would have been in the past, but people would optimize for engagement or add to carts or stuff like that in the past and say, oh, you need to be doing that to hit the number of conversions that Meta says it needs to start optimizing. Which is interesting. They've kind of dropped a bit recently, so I need to look into that a bit more, because they did used to say to optimize on Meta, they need to get 50 conversions a week in an ad set, which, depending on the size of the brand or even the size of the product you're selling, not every brand's going to get that, especially starting off. What I always used to find was if you could get at least about 20 product conversions a week, then that gives Meta some kind of platform to understand more who it should show the ads to, who's going to buy from your ads. So that's kind of the minimum that we would have looked for in the past. Just recently I think they've dropped the 50 conversions thing from the sort of guides that they've been putting out, which is interesting. I think their system is, they've had to overhaul it since iOS 14.5, and they've done a lot in the last year as well. So yeah, in the past that would have been that would almost dictated your budget. So like if we were looking for at least 20 conversions, you'd have to pick a rough CPA, cost per acquisition or cost per purchase, and then times that by 20, and that basically gives you your ad set budget for a week. So that's kind of how we'd start off, is looking at kind of an average order value or a goal CPA, and that's what starts to dictate the budget that you've got for top of funnel ads. And then now you have, it kind of complicates it in one way, but another way it doesn't. I think it complicates it for people that have been running ads for years, because we use ad set budgets, campaign budgets, different bid types, and now you've got Advantage Plus shopping campaigns, which in general are pretty good. When they first came out, I think it is one of the better things that Meta's come out with in the last probably 5 years.
Would you trust it with all your budget though?
No. And never, even when it first came out, we were testing it. Like this, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, just before Black Friday. I think it was September. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. And like reps were trying to get you to spend more on it. And I think on average they were saying that businesses were spending 50 to 60% of their budget on ASC campaigns. And some clients we would have got close to that, and we were getting really good results. But then we just found a few months back it wasn't being quite as effective. Although it has been in general a harder year for advertising than previous years. So we went away from ASC a little bit, and then you definitely see in some accounts it works better than others. So I always think that's a good starting point for brands starting off, because it's what Meta's trying to get people to use. And it definitely can work really well, but it's just about knowing what to test. So if you're an e-com brand, then definitely I'd say Advantage Plus shopping campaigns is something you should be starting off with, as a starting point, and seeing what kind of results you're getting.
I think you kind of touched on something there that I would tell people all the times. Whenever you're dealing with a platform, whenever they release something shiny and new, it's always good to test it, because the platform really wants that to work. So they're going to make that work as well as possible to try and convince everyone to buy in it, which means there's a chance. It's like whenever you talk about organic, even as well, whenever Instagram launched Reels to combat TikTok, I was like, oh, Reels are doing so well. And it's like, it's almost like they want it to succeed. So I would say that's one thing, testing. I know you said about that before. Testing is always important, but just to reiterate that direct point, that shiny and new on platforms, it'll either work really, really well or potentially not at all. But that's
I I think you don't want to be one of the first people to test it. So we got budget for one client. I think Meta gave us some vouchers to test it and something else as well. I think it was product tags on ads. So if you can get a voucher, if you're a startup or a new business, you probably wouldn't get a voucher from Meta to do that. But yeah, generally you don't want to be one of the first people to test it. But once something's been tested and they roll it out, then that's a good time to sort of jump on things, because, like you say, yeah, they're gonna be focusing on that. So when Threads came out, people like Andy as well that you mentioned, I think he's still trying to get things going on Threads. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. If they do bring something new out, to adopt it and give it a test.
Okay. So whenever we've talked about the brand awareness and the purchase campaign. Now, I have two trains of thought on this, and you can shoot me down. I agree with purchase to a certain degree, but sometimes what I'll do, especially in the smaller brands, less budget, is for the top of the funnel, I will get video creative and use the free play and measure based on percentage watched. And for our middle funnel / warm audience, people who have watched beyond the norm, largely because we have this impending fear of third-party tracking and all that been taken away from us at some point. So I try to encourage first-party data collection where possible. And I do find that works well some of the time. More what I would call data loading more than anything else. Sometimes it's easier to get, as you say, you need the 50 conversions, and particularly where there's perhaps not a lot of budget, it's easier to get the 50 free plays than it would be to purchase to warm that audience up. But I don't always use it. I think it's a case by case. I don't know, that's potentially talking dirty to you, but
no, yeah, it's something that we would have done in the past. But it's one of those weird things where, along with another mistake I see people making, especially starting out with traffic ads, which are pretty much junk unless you just want to get people clicking on the ads in terms of actual results.
I think one of the things
go on.
I think one of the things that people don't realize, that with traffic ads in particular, what you lack there is quality, and it does factor traffic from bot accounts, which can be negative to the whole experience.
And I also think it's misleading because it inflates your CTR as well and lowers your CPC, and it gives you a walkthrough of what those should look like for proper traffic. But I did something years ago. We did a study with one client where we were taking over from another agency, and they'd been running traffic ads because they thought they were getting cheaper traffic and they were retargeting and it was better. I think we put about $20,000 into the study, just testing traffic ads versus ads that are optimized for. I think it was maybe leads because they were supposed to be booking calls. It was for a course. And yeah, it just did way better than the traffic ads, even though the CPM was higher, cost per click was higher, CTR was lower. We were just getting way more, much better quality of person to the website and to fill out the lead form. And just retargeting the cheaper traffic ads, there was hardly anything coming from it. So even though it looked like we were getting much cheaper traffic, and the volume was good, just the quality wasn't there at all. And I found that again, logically, it would seem like retargeting video views used to be a very popular strategy a few years ago. I think it's kind of gone out a little bit in recent years, but it makes sense if someone's watched 75% of the video, they must be interested. But that's what you have to remember, that when you give Meta an objective, it's very good these days at finding people who will meet that objective. So you've got to remember, if you're telling Meta that you want clicks, it's going to get you clicks. It's not trying to find you a conversion that way. If you tell Meta that you want video views, it's going to find people who watch videos, but maybe they're not shoppers so much. So, although if that gets you cheaper traffic and it bulks up your audiences, can bulk them up quite nicely. It's something that more often than not, I found it hasn't worked that well. Honestly, it's not something that I've tested that much recently. It's something that we'd roll video view audiences into middle funnel retargeting for clients where they have other other kind of warm audiences anyway. So it's kind of more just bulking up a little bit rather than, narrowing down and saying, yes, that's working really well as a strategy. So yeah, like anything, test it, see if it works. If it's working for you with some clients, and that can be a nice efficient way to get more retarget traffic.
Yeah, not as much an issue anymore, but I know in the past one of the things that Meta let people have control over was conversion windows to the extreme. I seen whenever I was doing an audit an account, someone who had set their client's conversion window to 90-day view, and strange enough, their ads looked really good.
Yeah. It's still seeing it. Yeah, you can't do it in Meta anymore, but yeah, Google, you can still do it. So yeah, we've seen that a few times on Google where they have really 30-day view windows, 90-day click or whatever it is, and yeah, definitely something to check because it gives you a very misleading picture of what your ads are actually generating in.
Talking about the basic funnel as well, one of the things at 14.5, where my whiskey glass is currently missing, one of the things that actually worked really well for bottom of the funnel, where Facebook started to lose its edge, was using Klaviyo for the remarketing stage. Because particularly, like we're talking about people who are entry level and just starting out, they generally qualify for the free tier or even just the first tier, which is quite cheap.
Yeah.
And typically what I found is whenever I rolled that out to customers, what they saw was what disappeared from Facebook in terms of remarketing started made up by Klaviyo, and then they weren't having to pay initially anyway to get it in that case as well. So I think it's one of those things, as you say, where you're not getting that data for the purchase remarketing whenever you're just starting out. Something like Klaviyo can help drive that a little bit further.
Yeah, and that's only where, if you're not getting results or the purchases are too expensive, then at least you can be generating leads efficiently.
Yeah.
And then follow them up in Klaviyo. And a good way to do that is if you're running a contest or some kind of, if you have an email pop up which gives people, a lot of people do 10%. I say at least 15% has more impact, definitely. If you're doing 15% off the first order, people sign up to your email list. And yeah, if you make sure that you're just collecting those all the time, or even potentially running some ads, it can be like competition. It's something to do with the brand. It's worth at least £150 or $150. I find that's a good sweet spot there. At least if you're collecting qualified leads, and then you can follow them up in Klaviyo pretty much for free. Like you say, if you're on one of the lower tiers, if your email list isn't that big.
So looking at each stage of the funnel, what would be the important metrics you would look out for? So obviously the end goal of any business is to see the purchase, but where we are scaling up and whenever we're ramping up, where do you think you should be identifying stuff? So for me personally, I kind of look at frequency versus efficiency of purchase. So if something's high frequency but high purchase, I think that's okay. If it's high frequency, no purchase, I would say kill it. And stuff like that. What I normally look at, what else would you look for?
So starting off, so the first thing is if you are starting to run ads for the first time, then first thing is from a mentality point of view, it's an investment, it's not a cost because you're trying to get something back. So that's the way you have to look at it. And you are going to have to spend money to make money in the future. So you can't kind of begrudge, if you have a couple of days with no purchases or the cost of a purchase is high, then you have to invest the money. We find normally for 2 to 3 months before you start seeing much return if it's a brand new account. So the first thing you want to see is at least is there some purchases coming through, or leads. Obviously, a bit of lead gen's your goal, but I'm talking about this all from an e-com point of view. But yeah, at least if you see purchases coming through, you're seeing add to carts, then you know that there's some kind of interest. Your ads are doing something. Because another thing that people miss is, ads are. Yeah. One common thing people say is, ads are the fuel on the fire, but the fire has to be sort of lit in the first place in terms of the brand, the website. Is the website converting? So, when I said at the start about tracking, but for e-com, an average conversion rate for an e-com site is about 2%.
Yeah.
Some of our clients would be a bit lower, maybe like 1.5, but if a brand came to me and their conversion rate was actually a couple I have in the past kind of year or so, and if their conversion rate is under 1%, and I'll say something like, before you even spend £1 or $1 on ads, you need to go and fix the website. It needs to be converting better. Otherwise, you're just throwing money down the drain. So from that point of view, and then when you start investing in the ads, it does take a little while to start seeing the returns. You have to test different creatives, like yourself. And when you find ads that work, that's when you can start investing more on them. But definitely there is a period where, especially at the start, you just want to start seeing purchases coming through, and then you want to start to optimize things. And then for ecom, the key metrics is probably the cost per purchase slash ROAS, because they kind of go hand in hand. But cost per purchase, from a unit economics point of view, if your average order value is £50, if your margin's 50%, then that kind of gives you what you can afford to spend in terms of a cost per purchase. And then, at least as a rough guide at the start. So then, once you start seeing purchases coming through, that's what you want to focus on. And then a lot of people still look at ROAS. ROAS is, it can be useful on platform. There's other metrics, I think we'll talk about in a bit, that are more useful on a wider business level. But one of the problems with ROAS is it's influenced by average order value, because it's, for some clients it might be fairly consistent, the average order value, but others, we have some clients where they might have sort of samples or discovery packs at a lower price compared to everything else, and that can distort the ROAS. So the ROAS might look really crap because people are just buying the samples, but if it's brand new customers and they're going on to convert down the line, they're buying samples, and then 2-3 weeks later they're buying the full price product. That's what you want as a brand. So that's where, if you're just looking at the ROAS, you might think, I need to pause these ads. But then if you look at it, you see you're actually getting good cost per purchase, and you see there are new customers coming in, and you are running Clavo to support those, they're being followed up down the line, then that's where it might make sense to be investing in those ads, even if the ROAS looks bad and your actual direct return that you're getting, within a week, 2 weeks of running the ad isn't great. From a overall business point of view, and from looking in, it's not even longer term, like medium term. If it works out, then that makes sense for you to invest in those. And that's where, there's a lot to understand with an e-com brand, apart from the kind of the unit economics like we talked about, and what your goal cost per purchase should be. But then, what your goal is in terms of new customers, because you always want new customers to be coming in all the time. It's very different for different brands. Some brands won't get repeat custom if it's, if they're selling a small handful of products and it's not consumable, it's not something where they can upsell other stuff, or there's other stuff down the line. But other brands, like we have maybe skincare brands that we run ads for, people are buying pretty much every 4 or 5 weeks. It's the same product when they run out. So repeat customer rate's high. So that's where it's important to be getting, a certain percentage, and brands will have a target for that, a certain percentage of net new customers every month that will come in and buy, and then hopefully keep buying every 4 or 5 weeks.
I think you touched on an important thing there when you talked about conversion rate, because I recently did a webinar for a program where I was talking about preparing for Q4, getting ready for Christmas, and I had two kind of slides in there. I'd added a bit for humor and to help drive the point across. The rest, it was reasonably factual. One was you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The purpose of marketing isn't necessarily to drive that direct conversion. It is so that when people are ready to buy, you're in their thoughts. And the second was the meme, you've probably seen it before, cooking spinach. So it's a pan filled to the brim with spinach, and it's traffic. Then in the middle, there's like not a lot left, and it's leads, and then there's like just the stalk of one bit of spinach left in the pan, in the third pan, and it's sales. Because people think just because they're getting a lot of traffic, like 2% is average, and it's you said earlier about 5% being organic. I remember working with people, and they were like, it's not, Meta is not doing anything for us. We're not seeing great. We're saying that like X amount of followers, and we only get such and such. you did the maths, and it's like, that's 8%. I was like, you're actually doing really well. They just don't realize. And I think an understanding of what is typical. One of the things I'd said about in my talk was look at the average conversion rate. I was talking about like year-on-year growth. So it's like, do your research in your own year-on-year growth. Look at what year-on-year growth is in your industry and as a whole in your current economic climate. Because I was talking about Northern Ireland businesses, so I was talking about how the current state of e-commerce was in Northern Ireland versus relevant folks and metrics from further afield. So yeah, I think just being aware of conversion rates and all that other kind of stuff, because people sometimes think you put money in and all the sales just fall in your lap straight away. But it's about taking people down. That thing. I think what I possibly failed to talk about was the order of the funnel and why awareness is so wide at the top. Consideration normally in the middle gets thinner, and conversion so small is because you are taking people on a journey. And you just have to be aware that it is an investment. It's not a cost, it's an investment.
And as well as that, like with the journey, it's different for almost every person. And a lot of the time businesses think it's like a steady, like you say, it's a nice funnel, awareness, consideration, conversion, but it's not actually like that. Some people will go straight down to the bottom and they'll buy from seeing one ad or two ads within, a couple of days. Other people will take longer. They'll go away and do research and might go and look on Google, TikTok, wherever for stuff, and then they'll end up getting actually that way maybe. And the journey's more like kind of up, down, all around the houses. So I think, you have to kind of cater for all that, and that's where, like I say, if you're starting with low conversion ads, focus on purchases, you will capture those people that will buy straight away, and Meta is good at finding those. But then another thing to remember is that the ads can't do all the work for you. Like I say, going back to that it's fuel on the fire. The only purpose of an ad really is to get someone who's at least vaguely qualified to click on the ad. After that stage, the ad's done its job. It can't do anything else. And that's where the website comes in. Whatever funnel you've got built in, your email marketing, that's where that all needs to be on point to support the ads, or, they're not going to work, because you can have the best ads in the world, but if they go to a website that doesn't convert, then you're not going to get the results.
I remember, I just gave me a flash nightmare back to when I was working on an agency where we were told to run ads for a client to the website, and there was a lead generation ad, and they didn't have they wanted it to go through the website because they wanted people to look at stuff before they converted on just directly on platform. And on said web landing page, there was 2 lead forms. One of them for general contact and one of them for the desired lead purpose. And I was like, can we change this to make more sense? And they're like, no. And it's like, how do you optimize for something where the customer has no idea, because there wasn't even a good definition between each of the forms. It's just like, here's 2 forms. And it's like, right.
Choose one for yourself.
Yeah. So, I think people like to know what they're doing when you send them to the page, but also, I don't know if you've come across this before. There's a psychology about people like choice. In e-commerce, I think once they know what they're looking to buy, they don't mind seeing an advert for the product they're looking to buy. But where sometimes what I've seen is, if you send someone to a collection page or a category page as opposed to product stage at an earlier stage, they like to be able to choose, even if you know what they're going to buy 90% of the time. It's off-putting for them to be forced to go to the end product. They're like, no, I want to have said this. Have you come across that, or is that just like some of the stuff I've dealt with?
Something we test. And then another important thing is what products are shown, which is important for e-com brands on both the homepage and collection pages. Like, are you showing selling products, or is it like, we've had it a few times in the past. Sometimes it can be like, if you don't change it manually, it could be alphabetical, something like that. And you're showing people products that don't really sell that much. So it's important to make sure that ideally, most of the time, that should be showing people best sellers. But also what you then want to check is, if you're showing someone an ad for a certain product, so product A, if they are going to a collection page rather than the product page, is that product at least, one of the first few that's visible when they hit that page? Because otherwise there's going to be that disconnect. There's not that consistency between the ad and the landing page. Yeah. So something we test is sending people to the collection page or homepage sometimes if it's appropriate versus a product page. But most of the time, the product page would convert better because, at the end of the day, they've clicked on an ad for that product. So that's what they're interested in. You send them there and then you can have upsells in the checkout, or you can have like other recommended products, below that on the product page. Whereas on a collection page, it can go two ways. Either the choices can work and they add other stuff to cart and maybe spend more than they would have done. Or they maybe get there and if it's not set up right, like I say, if the product A they've clicked on isn't immediately obvious they're seeing other stuff and there's a disconnect, then they'll just bounce and you'll lose them that way. So something to test, and definitely sending people to a collection page can get them to spend more because they might see other products they like, but it has to be set up right. And generally I'd say if you put a come to my head and said you have to choose one for this product for this ad to go to, I'd err towards the side of the product page because it matches what they're clicking on in the ad, what they're apparently interested in.
I think that's one of the reasons why testing's so important as well, is because all this stuff works great in theory whenever people have done research and this, that, and the other. But testing, whenever you test stuff, it doesn't always work out that way. I think we've told this story before on the podcast, but I had a client and we set up my process. I started with new clients, at least back then when it was before 14.5, we start wide, get some data, narrow down, get some more data, narrow down. Started wide, perfect, hitting targets, narrowed down, targets starting to slip. Okay, target down more, targets start to slip again. And at that stage, that worked really well. Like the more you narrow down, the greater stuff increased. And every time I narrowed down this client, it got worse. So whenever I went back to the completely wide open audience, suddenly we started doing really well again. So testing is important. That's why if you've one size fits all solution, it doesn't work. So you touched on it before whenever you were talking about ROAS, and I did warn you I was going to ask this question. For ROAS is the obvious one that shows in most advertising platforms as a metric for great consideration. And it looks good. Everyone talks about ROAS. But there's a term eROAS or MER. I think that personally is a better solution. Why would that be? I think we agree on that before we go any further and just answer this question. I think we agree on that to a certain degree. So tell me a bit about that.
I think it needs a bit of a kind of a higher level of consciousness, if you like, because it's to an extent, and some of our clients actually would ignore on platform metrics, but especially if you're running multiple channels, it's definitely a better kind of whole business metric. So what MER or whatever you want to call it is basically the percentage of your revenue that you're spending on advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And people always say to me, "Oh, what should that be? What should that look like?" And a lot of it depends on how aggressively you're trying to grow. And again, what the business goal is, which is obviously completely outside of ads and ads manager. That's something directors need to decide. So for our clients that are trying to grow more aggressively, they're prepared to spend more, they're trying to, grow business revenue. They're probably at somewhere like 30 to 35% MER, which is a bit of a shock for especially a lot of brands locally. They work off a lot lower numbers than that. And there's some things where I think some kind of old business advice where they say you should spend, I think, 8 to 10% of your revenue on advertising.
Yeah.
But generally, even at the lower end, I think kind of the highest / lowest MER that one of our clients work on was about 15%. If that's their prioritizing efficiency and profit over trying to grow more aggressively and spending more on ads, taking a bit less in profit but growing the revenue number. So yeah, probably on average it's somewhere between 20 and 25% in terms of MER. But why that's better is again, because it's the whole business number. So, Facebook or Google, whatever one you're running could say you're getting a 10x ROAS. And, if you're actually looking at your MER number, if that's 50, 60% and something's wrong with tracking somewhere, whatever Meta or Google selling you is a fairy story. So MER is something, no one can argue with, what you're getting back in revenue. That's a hard number that you're seeing, doesn't matter on Ads Manager or where it's, that's the number. And ad spend as well. That's hard. No, there's no attribution with that. That's literally what you're spending in dollars or pounds on advertising. Whereas, like I say, ROAS, CPA, whatever platforms report, it's dictated to an extent by how well your tracking's set up. And then, other factors like things like iOS 14.5, which screwed tracking on Facebook for a good year, 18 months. But yeah, like I say, some of the clients, we have kind of a baseline. MER is the main thing they look at, and that's what they'll want to know, like to be comfortable to sleep at night. Is my MER below 20%, and is revenue growing year on year? Yep, fine, they can sleep at night. And then we'll have like a minimum expectation on Facebook, and I'm not surprised some people, because a lot of people think they need to be getting a 5x on Facebook or 4x, whatever it is. But if their MER is in the right place and they're getting at least a 2x on Facebook, it might be, then they're happy with that. Or like I say, we have some where, they pretty much just look at the MER. As long as they know that Facebook, is at a certain level and moving in the right direction, they're not that interested in what the platforms report. MER is the main thing for them. So, and that's definitely a place in a sort of level of understanding that business had to get to after iOS 14.5, because tracking was so off. But even before then, like Meta, I used to find on average Meta underreported for a Shopify store by anywhere between 20 to 30% anyway, even before then. So that was something that the brands had to understand. But again, they didn't necessarily believe it. But then when iOS 14.5 hit, everything changed in terms of tracking. Like I say, Meta had to adjust to that, and it was, attribution was pretty screwed for about a year. That's when MER became more popular. And I think it's better in general, because it's, it's a better overall business metric, and it means more. And it's, there's no attribution to it. There's no debating what you spent on ads versus what you've actually got back in revenue.
I think as well, whenever you understand that funnels generally work across the whole thing, and that's why you take MER into consideration. If there is a platform that doesn't seem to be doing well, and you just shut it down completely, I've seen clients where the whole funnels fell apart because it maybe wasn't driving direct on-channel conversion, but what it was doing is it was sending an awful lot of data further down the line to allow that to convert. So whenever you took that out, the whole stack collapsed. I think that for me, that's one of the reasons it's why it's so important. And I've seen it work in reverse recently for a client where they were all in one channel and they were going to just completely kill it and move to another one. And I said, don't kill it. Scale it back 75% to a low number you're still comfortable spending a bit on. And then there's just another platform. And optimization happened within 2 weeks. The platform started doing better than what they'd been hoping to get to whenever it was their main goal. And they just started to see the conversions come through across both channels. So their overall MERs increased, even though they were getting ready to shotgun one of the channels.
Yeah, and that's what I say. Even with clients that MER is the main thing they look at. We'd always have kind of a baseline for Facebook. We know that if Facebook's showing a 0.5, something's wrong somewhere. We can probably definitely be improving the efficiency of that. But, that's where, like I say, it's at a lower level than in the old days where, brands would have wanted a 3x ROAS, or they're not going to be happy. They kind of want to fire the agency. And I think that's where, again, going back to kind of advice for startups and businesses starting off is, I would say most likely, unless you've got a decent budget or it makes a lot of sense from speaking to someone that knows what they're talking about, you probably only want to start with one channel. And for e-com, if you're a Shopify store, that's most likely to be Meta, I'd say. And that's where you sort of need to understand the difference in the traffic and the intent behind a lot of the traffic you get on Meta and Instagram versus Google. Because what I see, again, with a lot of brands, especially here, it seems like people default to Google because they think, Google shows them better results, which is usually inflated by brand search, which is something that they don't necessarily look into at that level of detail. And not that it's people that would have bought anyway, but it's kind of Google's higher intent traffic because people are already in market. They're searching either for the brand on that term, either the products or something closely related. Whereas Meta / Instagram, Facebook is, in a way, you're creating new demand for the product. You're reaching new audiences, getting new people to the site that weren't aware of it before, and that's the only way to grow and get new brand awareness. Google, if people ask me about brand awareness, I would say Google isn't great for it. You'd want to focus more on Meta. So that's why it's great if you can afford to run them hand in hand, because people will see new brands on Google, on Meta, Instagram stories. They go search for them on Google, and that's where they add support their SEO, things like that. But yeah, generally, if you are starting off, if you're a Shopify store, then you need to get fresh people to the site. Google can be expensive as well if it's a competitive market. If you're selling trainers or something like that. So that's where, especially if you are working a smaller budget, you don't want to spread that across too many channels. You're not going to get enough data back for any of them to be meaningful or optimized. So pick one channel, which is most likely to be Meta for a smaller Shopify store. Then you'll get fresh traffic to the site. You can retarget it that way. And then, once you're growing, then when you get more traffic, people will be searching for you a bit more. And then that's when you can possibly bring Google in.
I normally tell people that Meta is high volume, low intent, and Google is low volume, high intent. That's the way I try and break it down for you. Look, Gil, just one last question. Would you have a book you would recommend for anyone who was getting into e-commerce, either business related, ads related, just anything to help with business out?
I think there's anything ads related, and the reason for that is because ads related stuff goes out of date very quickly.
Yeah.
So people always ask me, well, like, what courses are good? And the starting point I always say to people is the Facebook Blueprint. I think they still call it Blueprint. Those courses, because they're some of the more up to date ones. Because any course that you buy from someone that's selling them, online, then within 6 months they're out of date. I even did some stuff recently, and then I filmed some videos on. It was when they updated the UI, so I'd filmed a lot of stuff on Loom, and then it was literally 2 weeks later, like it'd all been sent through and set up, and then literally 2 weeks later, it was like I'd have almost needed to refilm it all because Facebook can move stuff around. So the starting point would be the Blueprint course on Facebook, and the Google ones, they have similar courses as well in Google. So that's why, in terms of a book for ads, I don't think, I haven't really read a book that's good from a tactical point of view. It's somewhat like from a more an overall point of view. But again, the strategy changes because Facebook brings in things like Advantage Plus shopping, and that changes things. Google brings in PMax or changes things that you can see in PMax. But a good book I'm reading, I think for startups or people starting off is I don't know if you read it, Rand Fishkin's Lost and Found, or Lost and Founder. Mm-hmm. So I just started reading that recently on a flight. I had some time, and that was really good. So that's something that I'd say would be good starting off. And there's a lot about the pitfalls of starting a business, because he, do you know Moz, the SEO tool? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was his thing. He grew it. I think he sold it. But yeah, he grew that from pretty much nothing. Like him and his mum were running it. They were doing consulting, and then it turned into pretty much the biggest SEO tool in the world at the time. So it was about how he grew the business and like the pitfalls that he had, growing it and stuff. But it's stuff that's applicable to any kind of size of business. It's not just if you're trying to do that. So that's probably the best book that I've been reading recently.
Okay. Look, Gil, thanks very much for your time. Hopefully the audience has found this great. Speak to you again soon.
Good talking, John. Catch you soon.
So hopefully coming away from that, you will have learned a little bit more about Meta, Facebook ads, and general strategy for awareness, consideration, and conversion for launching a product or business online. We talked a bit about testing, and that's something that is vitally important. Even if you think you have the formula logged down, you should always test new campaign types, test new features on the platform, test new creative, test new copy. Testing is vital. And one of the things that Gil mentioned in the intro to the podcast as well is they will give you exactly what you're asking for. If you want to purchase and you optimize for anything but a purchase, the chances of getting the sale is significantly lower. So take everything we said on board, but remember those two things most of all. Always test and always optimize for the action you want the user to take, because their algorithms are very good at doing exactly what they say are. You know, if you're asking for video views, you're going to get video views. You aren't going to get sales. You might get sales, but Facebook's not trying to find people who are ready to purchase off you. So that was episode 5. Episode 6 will be coming in a couple of weeks. And then we will start into series 2, which the first episode, as Rand mentioned, has been recorded. Really excited about that, because in series 2, we're going to start exploring the wider fields around e-commerce marketing and building online businesses and brands. And I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into some of the more out there and next level stuff, because in theory, by the time you've done with episodes 1 to 6 and your business is starting to take off, you'll be ready to explore the next level of things. And we'll be here for it. That should be coming out in the new year. So episode 6 will be dropping before Christmas, and then we'll just roll straight into series 2 in January 2025. See you all in a few weeks.